We'll now learn the Sugiyos B'Lekut Sichos, Emuna Vidi'a, which is the first sugya that we're learning. For a moment, to speak about the inyan of Sugiyos B'Lekut Sichos. So, similar to what's mentioned by the Mamarim, right? The Rebbe's Torah is tricky, and what makes it tricky is the certain ease or geschmack that it has, that sometimes dafka that covers up the oimek, the famous vart that they say about different tzaddikim. It's attributed to different tzaddikim. Basically, he said that he's a tzaddik nister. They asked him who's a tzaddik nister. He says one of the tzaddikim nister. You're a tzaddik nister. Everyone knows you're a tzaddik. And the answer was, Achin vei, if all I am is what people know of me. Yeah? That everything, sometimes you have the dafka, everything that's begilui, that's what's master on the oimek. We get to Lekut Sichos, b'chlal, we learn Lekut Sichos, the meaning is Yisrael, learn Lekut Sichos ala parsha, and the take, that's how Lekut Sichos came out. Lekut Sichos, every parsha has, I think, is about 21, 22, 23 sichos per parsha, average, and that's when the sichos would come out every week, towards the end of the week, and you learned in 770. On Friday night, Shabbos, we can learn the Sikha from the Vach. Right? And Taka, every Sikha is connected to a Pasuk, a Inyan, a Sugi in the Parsha. But Bachrim here, we already learned a few Krachim of Lekut Sichos. And Lekut Sichos, you realize, Lekut Sichos, obviously there's the Shaykhis to the Parsha Shavua, but more importantly, there's Musagim here. There's Inyanim Yesoidim, and Nigle, and Chsidis, and Ashkafa, that the Rebbe is Mevar Baruch. And when it comes to these Inyanim, as you learn Sichos, you realize that there are certain sugyas in Lekut Sichos. Certain inyanim that Rebbe comes to again and again, that Rebbe comes to it from different angles. Right, so let's say the sugya we're speaking about here, you have one sikh that Rebbe comes to it from the angle of the machlekes of Rambam and the Rayid. And then there's the sugya of chukim and mishpatim, connected to the word of the shlav, zakeli van veyu, and then the hadrin ala Rambam, and then we'll get to the difference between Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus HaKlolis. Right, so there might have many different angles, you might call it many different levushim, but the toichin is the zelp. When you see all these inyanim together, it brings a klarkite, a behiros, and a geshmak, and the ganze sugya. You actually see, when you learn the sichos, you're able to see many times the Rebbe's mitzayin. In the Ars, look at the sichos, the Rebbe's mitzayin to an earlier sicha, right? So earlier sicha means from an earlier krach, and then you have a sichos in the later krach, and the Rebbe's mitzayin to an earlier krach. The sichos, they gave out the sichos, they had a irah that when a later sikha comes out, sometimes many years after an earlier sikha that was connected, so then in the earlier sikha they'd put a maramakim to the later sikhas. You can learn a sikha chelik tasvav, and you see ayin lekut sikhas chelik chavzayin. Right? How's that shaykh? It came out a few years later. They would add, because it was a very clear connection. You'd see that addition. But sometimes, it's not always do they bring these maramakim, and sometimes you have to search for the other sikhas and see the connection, especially when the oisias sometimes not exactly the same oisias. But when you think about it more, you realize it's the same vart. So that's one thing. The need of finding a sug in the Lekut Sichos, like we're doing over here. The zweite Zach is another inyan that it's important to pick up when you're learning a sicha, is that the nekudas achidush of the sicha. The Rebbe in the sicha is speaking about musagim. The Rebbe Yiddishkeit is around for many, many generations. And Chassidus is around for Kama Deiros. Chassidus HaKlolis, Chassidus Chabad. And the Rebbe speaks about these inyanim. You learn the Sikh and you might get lost or might not pick up the Nekudas HaChidush and think, okay, the Rebbe is giving it his OCS, his inyan. You might miss the Nekudas HaChidush. There's almost always, there's a certain Nekudah there that the Rebbe is trying to get to, that you might learn a whole Sikh, 5 pages, 10 pages, 12 pages, but you miss the Nekudas HaChidush, you're not getting the point that the Rebbe is trying to get to. The tricky part is that when it comes to the chidushim and the sichos, you sometimes have the inyan of you blink, you missed it, right? There might be an arichis in the whole lead up, in the whole build, and then the nekudas achidush can mean the last sif, second to last sif, in a keta, tzveiktoim, and mamish you see that in these sichos, at least in some of the sichos. So you learn the sicha, you could even chazer the sicha, and chazer in shul, and chazer by the table, and teach a sicha, and we might have missed what the nekudah Rebbe is trying to get to here. And it's always important to look for what's the chiddush, what's the chiddush Rebbe is trying to get. And that chiddush, and this is a very geshmak sugya where you see that you see that chiddush that the Rebbe is trying to get to in the sugya of Emunah and Yediya. You see it in Sikha number 1, in Sikha number 2, in Sikha number 3. In a few of them, you might miss it. It's important to see the Nekudas HaChiddush, where on the one hand, they all come to the same Yesoid of the Chiddush that Rebbe is trying to come to. At the same time, Ein Beis Medrash Bloi Chiddush in the Chiddush Gufa. So the Chiddush is not the same Chiddush, meaning it's not just 3 Sikhs saying the same thing in different oisias. But that Gufa, once you find the Chiddush, what's the nafkamina? What's the vart in this Sikha? What's the Chiddush in the other Sikha? And what's the Chiddush in the other Sikha? And what I'll try to do over here is try to bring out the Nekudas HaChiddush in this Sugya that Rebbe has throughout the Sikhs, and as we see here, there are other Sikhs in Sefer HaSikhs, the Hadranim. What's the Chiddush of the Rebbe in this Sugya, and how the Rebbe says the same vart, or used on the same vart, but it goes in a completely different direction. And important to pick that up. And I think once you see it over here, you'll be able to see it when you learn these Sikhs, and you'll be able to hopefully find it in other Sugyas as well. So the Sugya of Emunah and Yediya is anyone who learned a little Chassidus knows this Yisoid is the Ginyan, right? We have the mitzvah, beginning of Torah, the beginning of Sefer Dibris, Anoiche Avayel Ikecha, which is the Chiyuv to, that's where it gets a bit complicated, right? Leida Sheyesha Matzirishin or Lahamin Sheyesha Matzirishin. Right, so that's in the Rambam Gufa, you have Sefer HaMitzvahs, that always brings the Sefer HaMitzvahs and Sefer HaYad. According to certain girsais and certain translations of the Sefer HaMitzvahs, is the mitzvah to believe or is the mitzvah to know, to understand? In general, in many of the Sikhs, the Rebbe is mitzayin to Amanas Alikos of the Tzemach Tzedek in Derech Mitzvisecha, which is why it's brought here as a psicha, because it's sort of the yisoid, the psicha of this sugya, and this connects to, this relates to many different questions, right? Because the ultimate shayla is, what is this first mitzvah? The first mitzvah in the Torah is to what? Is it to believe it as an Eibush there? How could you say there's a mitzvah to believe? Right, there's a few issues with that. Number one, how can you command? Who's commanding? The Eibush is commanding. The Eibush is commanding someone to believe it as an Eibush there. If this Cheverman doesn't yet believe it as an Eibush there, then there's no mitzvah. How could there be a tzivui to believe in the mitzvah if there's no mitzvah, right? So the Torah only exists, and the Eibishter's tzivui only exists because of the fact that the Eibishter is here, and it's talking to a ma'im, someone that believes in the Eibishter. So how can you command someone to believe? And a different sign, and this is brought in there, a different sign is a mitzvah is already practical things to do that the Eibishter tells the Yid to do. Lahamish Yeshem Matzirishin precedes all mitzvahs. It's a bit different than the Barbanel. It's not a shaila. How can you command someone to believe? But more that mitzvahs is already a lower level, right? First there's kablu malchus, and then there's kablu gzeiroisai. First there's a believing in the Eibishter, and then comes the mitzvahs. Why are we mitzav on the emunah? Because of this, so different answers appear, which we can clearly divide into two general mahalachim. One mahalach is that yes, the mitzvah is lahamin. Mitzvah is to believe. Now you'll ask me, how could you command someone to believe? So we say, yeah, it's not to believe that the Eibishter exists, because you can't command someone to believe that. That doesn't make any sense. That's circular belief. Yeah. But the mitzvah is to believe in the Eibishter's shleimus, to believe in the Eibishter's galus, that in the different Ikrei Emuna in regards, right, from the Ikrei Emuna, 5 of them, or about Gadlus of the Eibishter, to believe different things about the Eibishter Shlem. Not just he exists, more than his existence on a basic level. Another way of answering it is, Emunah, there's no mitzvah Emunah. Emunah, either you believe or you don't believe. The mitzvah is, to the Maimin, Yediya, to learn, to understand. Now, Yediya Gufa, Yediya itself has different compartments there. Yediya is to learn, to understand. Yediya is to prove, this is according to some halachim, to prove the existence of the Eibishter. Don't only believe that the Eibishter exists, prove it to yourself, right? Have that confidence that the Eibishter exists. Now, obviously, a lot of this is interchangeable because believing in the Eibishter's shleimus is through learning. So by learning, you believe. And that's itself a part of a big sugya. What is in the world of Emunah and what's in the world of Yediya? This is a sugya, obviously not mugbal to Chassidus, it's out of Chassidus, and Chassidus has its take. Now, the Mahalach of Chassidus even call these like this. that there's Emuna and there's Yediah. Where's Emuna, where's Yediah? So 2 points to know. The first point is understanding what is Emuna according to Chassidus. What is Emuna? Right, so the average Jew, you'll ask them, what does it mean that we're Aminim b'nei Aminim? We believe. What does it mean we believe? So you'll get different answers. But even Klali, in the Vil, it divides into 2 answers. You ask, how do you know the Eibishter exists? So you'll have 2 answers. One answer is Ish mipish, Maminim, as the Lashon is, Maminim b'nei Aminim. Our parents believe, their parents believe, their parents. There's this Messiah we got, Doir mi Doir, Ish mipish, etc., and they gave it over to us. So this is the Messiah that we have, where Makabel we got from our grandparents and great-grandparents. Another Mahalach is, how do you know the Eibishter exists? This comes the shit of proofs. Right? Yeah, and you have different Sfarim. You have the Sefer HaKuzari, you have other Sfarim, right? Sfarim that they're in Pashti Mechiach Metzias Akel. Right, from Ilam Hazeh, prove it. There's a world. How could there be a world? There's no Eibishter. Matan Torah, we prove the Matan Torah happened, because how was it Shaykh? A few million people saw it, and no one denied it. All different proofs. Chassidus comes and says, this one and that one, Nish Das is Emuna. What's Emuna? Emuna it's a Gilui Milmaila. The Eibishter was Miskal and is Miskal to every single Yid. And this Gilui is in the Yechidah Shem Nefesh and the Etzem and Neshama. There are Neshama, Kviachol sees Alikus, right? Not to the Tzavi, he has 2 Lishayin. Zet Alikus, or is one with the Eibishter. The point is, there's a place in the soul of every Yid where the Eibishter is Bipshittis. That's what belief is. It's not miyusid on facts and proofs and heritage. Ich bin a maimin. A Yid believes, that's what Emunah is. Emunah is something that comes mo'maila to the Yid. So comes Chassidus and tells a Yid, every Yid is a maimin. We're all maimin. Why are we maimin? That's just the way we are. Just like a human being is a human, a Yid is a maimin. But it's not enough to just believe. You have to also know what is Yediah here. So but even Klal, when Chassidus speaks about Yediah, it's not Yediah proving the Eibishter's existence or any of that. Though that's brought also, you'll see some reference in some sichos, but that's more when Chassidus and the Rebbe is learning the Rambam or Nevuchim, and the Rebbe is learning in other Mahalchim. But even Klal, when Chassidus speaks about Yediah means learning Chassidus. Verstehen Alikus. Verstehen this darge, nehechere darge, learn Seder Shtalshus, as Larizal says, mitzvah Ramam Nisah, to learn Seder Shtalshus, to understand Alikus as much as we can understand. So that was the first one I want to bring out. How Chassidus sees where's the world of Emunah, where's the world of Yediah. This leads to the second point, the way Chassidus learns Emunah and Yediah, and it's brought also by the Tzemach Tzedek, that Emunah and Yediah are 2 ways how we relate to the Eibishter, but it's not just 2 levels in our nefesh, it's 2 levels in Elikus. Right? Because we reflect the Eibishter. So we have Emunah and Yediah, which is Emunah is from the Etzem Nefesh, and Yediah is already from our Seichel, lower levels of the Nefesh, but our Krichas Pnimim, our Krichas Gluyim. They relate to 2 layers in Elikus. Yediah is to the dargahs we can understand, but even Klali, let's call it Memali Kol Almin. Elikus, that's Shaykh Leilus. And Emunah is the way we perceive, the way we relate to higher dargahs in Elikus. Because we're not Shaykh to actually understand Seiviv Kol Almin, definitely Atzmus Ein Seiv Baruch Hu. Tachas HaYediah Sheloi Neida'acha, there are things we don't understand. And for those dargahs, we sort of resort to Emunah. Right? Now, there's a Maila in each one. The Maila of Emunah is that it's more Maila, that it's Emunah is called Re'iyah. It's as if you see it, it's clear. The certainty, the inner conviction that a Yid has in Elikus is Einei Nasadayin, right? You saw it. No, it's not based off proofs, and it's not about what you understand, what you don't understand. It's a klarkite, mitzat sheni. You don't have oisius to it. It's not in your mitzias, in your seichel, and in your regesh. It's really hard to relate to that. So Chassidus Chabad, when you learn Chassidus, it gives you seichel and it gives you oisius, and it makes it more personalized, right? So this is the ma'ila that it's hechem, this is the ma'ila that it's tifer, and it's more mitzad atach. This, boifin klal, you could say, this is a sikum kotzer of the sugi of Emunah Yediah Chassidus. Right, and probably all these oisius you've heard and seen before in Chassidus, this is where the Rebbe's sugya in Lekut Sichos starts. And where does the Rebbe want to go with this? In ein ois, in one sentence, what the Rebbe wants to say is, as the title of the section of the Sichos, Chibur Yediah ve'Emunah. From there being a world of Yediah and a world of Emunah, and this is connected to this dargan alikos, that's connected to that dargan alikos, and they're both very important, and we have to have both. No, it's not just we have to have both. The Rebbe always goes towards connecting the two, finding emuna in the yediah, finding yediah in the emuna, having the milas of yediah in emuna, having the milas of emuna in yediah. That's where it goes. Now, how we get there, and was meint es, because it sounds cool, because everything, by the Rebbe, everything is chibur, malas, soiviv, atzmos, it's always bringing everything together. So that's where the sugyas, and that's what the sichas are, and that's where the whole build-up is, but that's where the Rebbe gets. So I just want to show a similar vart in these three sichas, right? The sugyas divided into two. First, the emuna, and then three sichas, and then a hisafa. And then there's a sugya, emuna v'yediah, how it connects to chassidus haklal, chassidus Chabad. If I have a few minutes at the end, I'll talk about that for a few minutes as well. How the Rebbe chassidus haklal is chassidus of the Baal Shem Tov, and chassidus Chabad are be'etzem connected the two inyanim of emuna and yediah. And there as well, the Rebbe always goes towards that point of bridging the gap. It's not a gap, right? The way the Rebbe explains it, but showing how chassidus haklal and chassidus Chabad are really one and the same, because emuna and yediah are one and the same. I'll show you over here in these three sichas how the Rebbe gets to this point. The point that the Rebbe is on in these sichas is how even emuna, right, the things that the higher levels in alikos that l'chayra we relate to only from a place of emuna, there is an element of yediah there as well. We understand that which is not understood. What does that mean? So that means three different things we'll see in these three sichas. The first sicha is nitzavim. It's a sicha in chelik lamed dalid. Vergeshmak a sicha that packet, and here you see at the end of the sicha the Rebbe connects it to chassidus haklal, chassidus Chabad. That's in all the sichas, Rebbe ends up going there at least a bit. In Dargis and Abbas Hashem, very geshmak a sicha. Derech harukah k'tzara. In the middle of the sicha, especially where does it start? Sif Gimel. That's Sif Gimel through Sif Vav. Explain different inyanim in Yedias Hashem. And the Nekuda the Rebbe gets, so the Mahalach over here is, they were speaking about Das HaRambam, Das HaRayvid, which, Bepasha, you look at the Rambam and Rayvid, and you see this in this Sikh, and there's other Sikhs as well, and it's not, besides for the Rebbe, there's others that learn this way, that both in Klali, the Rambam kochs in the Inyan of Yediah, and the Rayvid kochs in the Inyan of Emuna. By the Rayvid, the Iker is Emuna, the Rambam's Iker is Yediah. That's the Mahalach, the way the Rebbe learns in the beginning of the Sikh. But then the Rebbe says, the Be'etzem, in Sif Hey, the Rebbe wants to be Mechadish, the Shita Rambam is sort of a Shita Memutzas, the Rebbe calls it. Somewhere between Yediah and Emuna, a Chibur of Yediah and Emuna. What's that Chibur? Look on page 177. And I'm not going to have the whole build-up, just want to bring out the point that Rebbe says. And here's it's so important that we learn this Sikhet. It's 2-3 lines, but this is the whole word that Rebbe's trying to say here. 177, the second column. V'nira loimer b'das haRambam. This is page 14 in the Kovetz. V'nira loimer b'das haRambam. V'nira b'das haRambam. Shalodayetay mashet tzorech li is chakira sichlis. Ein rak b'dvarim sheshkoyach b'seichel asigam aburyam. Where does a person have to use their seichel and try to understand and make sense out of things? Not only things that we understand, or gam b'inyanim she'ein banu koyach leda. Right, the famous Rambam in Hilchos Shuvah, that the Rambam takes us on a whole journey trying to figure out Yediah and Bechira, and finally the Rambam leaves us off with saying, after all that, it's a whole perek, 2 prakim. The Rambam says, "What's dash shuvas? Know that this is too complicated, you never understand." It comes to Ivan and says, "What are you doing? You're trying to convince people that you understand something, and finally, after the whole Indian, you say, "Fashteh is garnished." But no, the Rambam says, "Da, know that you don't understand." Yesh chiyuv gam yom shemen konuch leda yesh chiyuv lisyageya ulahasik ze guf eshinin ze lamayla me'asagas. Und versteh as du verstehst nicht. As the Ram Taka brings over there, understand that the Eibishter's Deya is different than our Deya, right? Something we can understand. And the way he sees things, his Deya is not, and his Deya and his Gzeira is not Machriach. On the one hand, he knows what's happening, and from his knowledge comes everything. At the same time, it's not Machriach anything. We're not getting into the Pratim. In other words, come to that Havana. Let Yediah, what does it mean Yediah in the world of Emuna here? Verstehen, as mechanisch verstehen. So it's not just this way you can understand, and here just believe. Here become a Pashta Yida Maimin. No. Use your Seichel there as well to verstehen is versteht nicht. Right? So that's the word in Nitzavim, verstehen is versteht nicht. There's more issues in the Sikh. That's the first Sikh. The second Sikh, Mishpatim, This is a line gesiche. Probably many bachrim have learned it. Famous siche. Ze keli vanveyu alikei avi varoy mimenu. Rebbe brings from the Friedrich Rebbe. He brings the Shla, the famous Shla Yedua, on the pasuk Ze keli vanveyu alikei avi varoy mimenu. So says the Shla like this. That these are two ways we relate to the Eibishter. Ze keli, when the Eibishter is my Eibishter, because I understand it's a Eibishter that comes, that my relationship with him is through Yediah, Seichel. Then it's vanveyu. Vanveyu is the words anivahu. Anivahu, we're buddies, yeah, we're connected. Anivahu, we're connected. Elikei avi, when my relationship to the Eibishter is mitzad avi, so the Shla, when he says, what does he say avi? He didn't have emuna. He calls emuna, one that we found in the way we brought earlier. What's emuna? Emuna is ish mipi ish, avi. I got it as a messiah from my father, then it's varei mimenu. The Eibishter is merumim from me. I don't have a deep personal relationship. It's varei mimenu. Here you see something very interesting. This is derech agav, important for the point I brought earlier. Top of page 22, Meir Dikavart, page 22, right-hand side on the top, the first keta. Right there, it brings that the two inyanim of emuna and asagas haseichel. Emuna kommt nicht durch den Stadlos und Yegiah von dem Adam Gufe. Right, emuna doesn't come from ourselves. Nor das geht min imil maila. Oder beloshin v'signin hashla kabbalah ish mipiyish. In the loshin or signin hashla, it's ish mipiyish. What does it mean? Emuna comes from maila, I got it from my father, which got it from his father, which got it from his father. But that's the loshin and signin of hashla. In the loshin and signin of chassidus, it's, what is it? I don't get it from my father, I get it from my Abish Bashamayim. It's the Eibishter that gives it to me. Right? So where the Rebbe basically uses the derech of ish mipiyish and says, Aבצן, the Rebbe connects it to the derech of chassidus. That's the lashon of signin hashla. That's the lashon they use. But what it means, the pnimius, the chassidus and megala, is that it comes from maila. Fine. So then the Sikh Rebbe explains about it. So the Sikh speaks about that. It speaks about mishpatim and chukim. Very gishmak Sikh. Rebbe asks the shaila. Zek keli vanveyu is asaga and seichel. Elikei avi varei mimenu is emuna. Which one comes first? First, the yid is a maimin. We're born with emuna. We don't have brains when we're born. We can't learn chassidus when we're just born. Then we're emuna, and then the seichel. It's not just a chronological thing when we're born and later. That's the Yesod of Avodah is emuna, and then we have to be malbish emuna and seichel. So why do we say zek keli vanveyu and then elikei avi varei mimenu? So ulay yeshloimar, the way, and we brought this in Kudah earlier, that first you believe, then you try to understand. People can't verstehen. Certain things you can't understand, so those things you resort to emunas. You could say maybe that the reason emunas at the end is to say that after all what you understand, you still have to believe. But then, it's missing the first yesod. The yesod that's the etzem emunah, not just the few remaining things that we have to believe in. Emunah starts from the beginning. Here there's another Mordikavart of the chibur of emunah and seichel, and this is on the bottom of page 24. The last kata, the first column of page 24, the last kata. We start off with emuna, and then the Eibishter sort of is above us. We don't have that personal connection. But once a person then goes and learns elikus basagas sichlis, bis in ein Wort vanveyu, mamish become one. Demot wird aufgetan als euch die Madreges, welche seinen Hecher von seiner Sage, bis als man sie nehmen, nur in Läufen von Varei Mimenu, ve'emunah, seinen sie nicht mevatel sein Metzies. Nur der Varei Mimenu Gufe nimmt durch sein Metzies. Warum wie bald sein Metzies ist geworden vereinstigt mit elikus, wird sie nicht nispatel a filu von Madreges, welche sein Sechel nicht genkli. But here also, you learn, it's a very, very long siche, and the word here is very, very bekitzer, you can miss it. You know, but this is the word that Rebbe is trying to come to. What does Rebbe say? The kutzer that Rebbe is trying to say over here is, when you just have emuna is, it's out there, it's hecher, right? It's a bit abstract. You don't relate in a personal way. After you have that emuna, you go and you learn, say, chassidus. You learn wherever you can understand. We don't learn where we can't understand. What you understand is now, isn't abstract, isn't hecher from there, it's relatable. And now all of a sudden, likus comes something that you're comfortable with. It's b'siyashvus by you. So the Rebbe says like this: once you learn inyanim in chassidus, you learn inyanim in likus that are b'siyashvus by you, and now you're meyuchad with likus. Now even the inyanim that you cannot understand, that still you have to resort to emunah and keep it in the world of emunah, but you relate to it in a way of hasag, in a way of seichel. Not that you actually understand, you don't understand it, but you have the mila of seichel. What seichel? The isyashvos, a clark, not just a clark of re'iyah, but a clark of I'm comfortable with it. So over here, once you understand things, even when you don't understand, you become comfortable with. Because once you become a keli for elikus, even the lower levels in elikus, then the higher levels as well come to you based yashvos. Now the Rebbe's Malvir, through this, a very geschmack vart. Now, Ora 64, the next page. This is a one probably we all heard, right? The Piskon of the Rebbe Rashab, as men sitzt bei sich in Cheder men effen dem lekut Torah, fehlt men atzmos ein Seif. Geschmack vart. You hear the vart, it's a vart from the Rebbe. Right, so the Rebbe goes the next ketta and says, it's only Shaykh Chidis Skola, but we all have to learn something, and Epis Katzeu is negated. What's the shaila here? A person experiences a ness. Yes, something experience Atmos Ein Soif, say that. You're learning the Torah, you understand Chassidus. How are you feeling Atmos Ein Soif? Like, how's the practice? Right, talking about the Rebbe, but when you talk about something that's, the Rebbe says, negate to all of us, learning Likut Torah, you're sitting with Likut Torah in a room, you feel atzmos. Likut Torah is Chassidus Chabad. It gives us things that we could understand. Why are you feeling atzmos? That's the vart. You learn Likut Torah, you learn a vart Chassidus, even on a lower vart, a more simple vart of Chassidus. You learn a Mal Kalamin, the 10 spheres, something that is a bit more relatable to us. You learn that, filled with atzmos. Right, so that's the second Mahalach. The first oifin, it's more Rambam signin, right? Verstehen and versteht nicht. That's how Yediah comes into the world of Emuna. Here we're saying, no, there's going to be inyanim of Emuna. But those inyanim of Emuna, once you have Yediah, Emuna also gets the quality of Yediah in this oifin that there's yichud, and not only the nikud of bittul. Emuna is related more to bittul, right? There's no me, mamayim, no one's asking me my opinion. That's why a yid is a yid. A yid goy, what's kind of thought? Seichel is your person's metzias. Yichud, I connect with it. It's me. Once you connect with the Inyanim Mesichlim of Elikus, even the Inyanim of Lamayla Seichel, you also have Yichud, not only Bittul. That's the second. The third Sicha, and this is Sicha in Tafshinun, the Hadrin al Rambam, right? Every year there was a Hadrin from the Takana of the Rambam, and even before, but bigger for all the years from the Takana, and now there was a Hadrin. And this is a very geschmacka hadrin. So here the Rebbe learns the matzui and eini matzui and the different darga, and always right the first halacha and the second halacha in Rambam, right there and right there. So here the Rebbe says a meir dikavar. This is on page 32 of the Kovetz. The Rebbe speaks about that the two halachas in Rambam are elikos that's shaykh to Velt and elikos that are higher than Velt, right? Right there, Yediah and Emunah. And here the Rebbe says, in the second column, 126, the top two, and I would say after I read the last ketah, but the first the top two time. The Eibush Atzmos Ein Soif, higher things are higher than a Yediah. But ba'oifin shel Yediah she'einu mevatels gidri animtzoim l'chideres b'gdarim shalem. Calls man shahideyah hu mitzios la'atzmoi yechol aliyas hayediyah rak b'darga sheshiyachas gidri mitziosei. Bilu b'darga shalom ma'ila megidri mitziosei lo yishayich Yediah kim emuna. Kim shbiyachas l'darga zu mispatlim gidri mitziosei. Kasher hayediyah hu b'tachlis habitul she'einu mitzios la'atzmoi. V'chol mitziosei eina elo amitas himotzoi yechol aliyas Yediah gam b'darga shalom ma'ila megidri mitziosei. The Rebbe says like this. Hasaga, Yediah, are things that we can relate to, we can understand. Emuna are things that we can't understand. It's too high for us. We only relate it through Emuna. When is that? When you are your regular Metzias. But when a person reaches a state of Bittul, when you're Batul, B'standard Metzias. It's not your Metzias, you're now in Zach with the Eibush, right? You're Batul to the Eibush. When you're Batul, then you could connect everything. Now, hard to get into the you'll learn the Sikha Be'io and you'll get into the Pratim there. I just want to point out this point. It's a very similar var to the previous Sikha, but in a way it's Punkt Fakert. The earlier Sikha, the Sikha Chelik Zayin, what's the vart there? The vart is that once you have the Yichud of Hasaga, Muneh Be'fichlali is Bittul. When you have Hasaga, which brings you Yichud Belikus, even though the Yichud is on lower levels of Belikus, but now you're able to misyachid even with the higher levels that you have to come related through Emunah. The vart over here is mitzad bittul. Right there, the earlier vart was that now you don't have to be nispatel through the higher dargis, you could be misyachid with it. Not bittul yichud. Here we're saying in a way fakert. How do you receive? How do you connect to the higher in yonim of emuna in a oifen that you also have yediyah in that through bittul? Through bittul. When a person is nispatel and now kiviyach the very ganze nehecher mitzias andre mitzias, so now the person that was down here can't understand those higher things. You have to believe in it. But once you're nispatel and you connect to the Eibishter through this bittul, now you can afilu verstehen the hecher in yonah. How can you understand that? It explains in the Sikha, or probably how you could understand. Right? So these are three nikudis. I know if you didn't learn the Sikhs yet, what I'm saying might be a bit shtickle Kabbalah, but I'm saying it to bring out this point. When you'll learn the Sikhs, look for this nikudah and see the nuances and the differences. The same word they're trying to say, that's these Sikhs. When you get to the last Sikhs, I said that the Rebbe explains what's the need of Chassidus HaKlalis, what's the need of Chassidus Chabad. This is a sugya the Rebbe would speak about and the print in the Sikhs of almost every Chayelu Sikha, this Kislev Sikha, Chavdal Teva Sikhs. It always boils around, it goes around this Nikudah, boils down to this word of the Yichud of Emuna and Yediah. One very Geshmak Sikhs in the Isavis here, there's a Sikha of Chayelu, Parshas Kisaveh, Tavshin Mem Zayin, which I'm see a Pasha, it's very Geshmak Sikha to read. And the Rebbe brings this word, especially the story there, the Rebbe brings of the in Sif Tes. Look at the story there. Right, this is something that Chayel Fabrengens, many Chayel Fabrengens, I won't say every, but Mamish, a roiv of Chayel Fabrengens, the Rebbe would chazer this story, and starting already from Ayem Yem. What's the Ayem Yem of Chayelu? They bring a vort of the Baal Shem Tov, a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, it's Chayelu, the Yom of the Baal Shem Tov. What's the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov brought in the Ayem Yem of Chayelu? A Torah that was said by the Baal Shem Tov in Taf Reish Nun Beis. Right, which sounds a bit interesting, because the Baal Shem Tov wasn't Beilam Hazir. What happened then, the whole story that the Rebbe Nishmas Eden went Lemaila and heard 7 Torahs of the Baal Shem Tov, Tapish L'Beis, and Chazar these Torahs. The Rebbe, very often Chayelu would explain these Torahs, talk about these Torahs. And here's the Shaila. The Rebbe Rashab is Chassidus Chabad. He's not Stam Chassidus Chabad. The Rebbe Rashab is the Rambam of Chassidus Chabad. He is the ultimate intellectual Yediyah, right? If you took all the Rebbeim, who brings out the meaning of Das Velikus? The Rebbe Rashab. And the Rebbe Rashab is basically saying, by the way, he's draying in Oil Misel Yoyin. It's not just the Baal Shem that goes to Mashiach, that Shaila. The Baal Shem. What is Chassidus Chabad? It's some crazy things going on above, hearing from the Baal Shem Tov, La'achar Estalkos, Tafresh Nun Beis. The Rebbe asks, Pasach Nezah Maisa. It doesn't fit. That's the word. Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus Baal Shem Tov is one and the same. Emun and Yediyah come together. There, the Rebbe goes in those sikhs. The Rebbe goes a shtickle in a fakert mahalach. If these 3 sikhs, the mahalach was even in Emunah to find Yediyah, the sikhs about Chassidus Chabad is on the other Indian. In the Yediyah, Chassidus Chabad, it's like the Indian from Emunah from the Teres of Baal Shem Tov. But all ends up going to the same place. Emunah in Yediyah and Yediyah in Emunah. Good, sein Batzlacha Rabbe. And if anyone has a different mahalach in the sikhs, you're more than welcome. Bez Hashem will be kanim and pulpulim and kaitzim and zicher. We can have a sach mahalach from those. Then a sach hatzlacha. Chaim.